Hi, this is Richard Haight, and I just wanted to take a little time and talk about my new book, The Psychedelic Leap. It's just come out in book form. Be launching the ebook in just a few days, February 2nd. And this was an unexpected book. I had no plans to write it. In fact, when it was suggested by some of my students that I write a book on psychedelics, I kind of rejected it out of hand. In retrospect, I rejected it out of fear. There's a lot of things that one could potentially be fearful of for writing a book like this, but it wasn't the fear that one might expect. As a somewhat accomplished author on meditation, especially the topic in my audience being meditation and spirituality, and being a martial artist, having inherited several martial arts systems, traditional martial arts systems from Japan, reputation is very, very important. And doing psychedelics or writing about psychedelics probably not exactly good for, or at least one would think it wouldn't be good for your reputation. But and I've had many people comment to me about that I was taking a big risk with my reputation by writing this book. But that really wasn't my concern. I'm just interested in being as authentic as possible. It was authenticity that ultimately has allowed me to walk the path of awakening to the degree that I've been able to walk it. So it wasn't really damage to reputation or anything like that I was concerned about. The simple fact was that psychedelic can be utterly terrifying if you take a sufficient amount, and my concern was more or less that a person with the wrong mindset might read my work and take psychedelics and have a terrifying or even dangerous experience with them, and I just didn't want any part of that possibility. And so I didn't write anything. Now, I had my first psychedelic experience. I talk about it in The Unbound Soul in the Amazon, when I was in the Amazon in 2009. And so it's been almost 10 years since then. But I didn't consider writing any more about it, and I didn't actually have any subsequent experiences with psychedelics until a few years ago. In fact, shortly before I published The Unbound Soul, I'd finished writing it, but I was going through the editing process and that sort of thing. One of my students asked me if psilocybin mushrooms were a valid tool along the path of awakening, and I had to be honest, I didn't know. I'd never used psilocybin mushrooms. I had no pull to use them. I hadn't even considered it. And so I just said, I don't know. It seemed to me that ayahuasca certainly could be, as it certainly had helped me along my path and directed me to discover certain things that through my own work. I mean, through my own training and whatnot. But it kind of gave me homework that was really, really beneficial. And I couldn't deny the possibility that psilocybin mushrooms might be able, in sufficient quantity, with the right mindset and setting, couldn't do the same. On the drive home, I suddenly, unexpectedly, had a strong pull to take psilocybin mushrooms. I told this to my students, and a few weeks later I had a bag of 7 grams, which is what I asked for. Now, 5 grams of psilocybin mushroom is considered a heroic dose. So 7 grams is a significant amount that will knock your socks off. And 1.5 or 1 gram is usually enough to get a psychedelic experience for almost a fun, light experience. And when you get into the 5 gram and up areas, it can be quite challenging. And so, but I felt very strongly that 7.5 grams was what was necessary, and several weeks later, that amount was in my hands. I didn't feel drawn to take them for some time. I put them in the freezer just to preserve them, and out of sight, out of mind. It wasn't until several months later that I was drawn to take them, and I had my nephew, actually, I guess it would be a second cousin technically, at age 11 had died, incidentally on his birthday. I was teaching a seminar at the time when he died, and the night before the memorial service, unexpectedly, it was time. It was time to take the mushrooms, and it was an utterly terrifying experience, but extraordinarily beneficial. It took me to a place where it gave tremendous insight and helped to clarify. I would call it my most foundational, darkest inner demon. And so it was. Now the method that I had used to consume the mushrooms, the mindset, the entire process was not logically derived or following any formula, but there's a certain method a certain inner guidance that I follow, which is ultimately what writes the books for me, is what guides me through life. In language, I have to say me and I, but in reality, there's not a sense that there's an I or a me. It's just there's a body, and there's experiences and life happening, and there's engagement in life and that sort of thing. And that inner guidance is what's doing the moving in life. And so my method, or the method that came about, is ultimately what I write about. It's a different approach to taking psychedelics that is an approach that actually applies fully to daily life, whether or not you were to take psychedelics. It's a transformative perspective on life, I guess we could say, approach to life, attitude towards life that if people embrace, it's truly transformatively powerful. And so once I had that psychedelic experience, I was terrified to write about the book, and I didn't really go there as far as writing at all. I didn't write anything about it. I recorded my session, the audio. I just voice recorded the session, what had happened, and confirmed certain events with my wife, and she was there to make sure that I had it accurate, and then forgot about it. About a year later or so, right about the same time, again I was drawn to take another heroic dose, and again it was an utterly terrifying and truly transformative experience. And then again, some months later, another such psychedelic mushroom or psilocybin mushroom experience. All three of them, as well as the ayahuasca experience in the jungle, were connected as if they were one experience. So they weren't as if they were different experiences at all. They just, it was like the story began, and it just went step by step through each of these experiences to bring about a profound circle of clarity. That circle of clarity is all about the human perspective, life, and a transformative way of being and releasing inner darkness. And so it wasn't until I published this book in just a few days ago, but it was going into editing a little over a month ago. I started writing it a month before then. I was in the process of writing Dance of the Self, which is process of using the nervous system as a path of awakening, and was almost completed with that manuscript when this book just butted in and knocked that aside and demanded full attention, and within a month it was written. And although I could say that it was written with ease, it just flowed out. It was a real journey in itself, unwrapping the information that was really held within those psychedelic journeys. Ultimately, the information that had been held within in the unconscious mind. A lot of early readers are saying it's my best work yet, and that, as probably many of you know who are my audience, most of you are maybe interested in meditation or spirituality, and in forms of discipline. And like me, I was a purist in my ideology about psychedelics. You might feel the same, that it's inappropriate for the path of awakening. My search into psychedelics began from that perspective. I set it aside ultimately before I took the psychedelics, but I went into it from a purist perspective, feeling more or less that psychedelics were not appropriate in the path of awakening. I says because I was unexpectedly pulled to psychedelics. It was not planned. It was a quote-unquote spiritual pull, and I followed those pulls. I was stuck between a rock and a hard place, ideology and the spiritual path, and so I go with the spiritual path. And what I realized is they can be, the process with psychedelics can be tremendously transformative and beneficial in the spiritual path, with some caveats. Intention has so much to do with it. And if the intention is right and the individual truly feels pulled to it, then it can be an incredible process, a revealing process. And I can't say that I recommend it to people or not recommend it. I'm still neither pro nor con psychedelic. I'm just conveying the experiences that I had as honestly as possible, in the event that they are a valid tool for some people, and help people to clarify if it is right for them or not. And also to offer a new perspective on psychedelics and a new approach to taking them that may prove to be more powerful in terms of the transformative nature of psychedelics. And so, if you're at all interested, or even you're just the slightest bit curious, this is probably the book for you. And so again, The Psychedelic Leap, it's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, a number of other online stores. It's not yet in physical stores. The ebook will be launched here on February 2nd through 6th, if I recall. So I'll have it on discount at that time. So if you're interested in waiting till then, you're welcome to go and grab your copy at discount. It'll be set at 99 cents. I'm hoping for lots of reviews. This is a taboo topic, and a lot of people don't want to touch it with a 10-foot pole, more or less because they're afraid of what it might do to their reputation. I think that they think way too much about their reputation and what people think about them. But what it does is it makes it difficult to get the right audience. So I'm hoping you can check it out, post a review, just good honest review, and let me know what you think. I'd love to receive your emails, your thoughts on the book, and any ideas or questions that you may have. Again, this is all a process of finding the deepest place of authenticity within, and I'm just happy to be a part of your journey as much as you are a part of mine. And thank you for listening. Until we meet, take care. Bye-bye.